Alright, back again, Luke here. And as you can see in front of you, this is that old project that I had worked on quite a long time ago. This is for the Biohazard arcade game, and if you remember, I was able to get this thing to work. It works really well with the game, but it doesn't look the prettiest. So what I was thinking about doing here is taking one of these. This is a regular Sega Saturn gun, and trying to mount this on the outside here. Now this kind of seems quite easy, but what I'm going to have to do is just chop this whole top part off here using the bottom part of the handle, and I'm gonna have to melt away some parts or chop away this so it kind of sits inside here, and then I'm gonna try and use some of the parts that are left over from the original gun so I can just wire that all in, one of those being the trigger. So we'll just pop that in there, and that should work out as the trigger. But this is the first stage here. As you can see, it's really rough, but I'm gonna try and cut this here at the top. Then we'll try and actually move this piece of wood down here a little bit so it stays in place and it holds these two sides in. We'll move around the button, we'll put the button here, and hopefully when we get done with this, it should be okay. It should be a lot better than what it is right now. But first thing we're going to do is just chop these off here, chop the post off, and then move the piece of wood down here so it's got a bit more of a support on the handle, and then the rest of it's just going to be the support of the gun. So I'm going to get on that right now, and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, what I'm in the process of doing is trying to fit the outside covering. What I've done is I've cut the circuit board down here to make sure that it'll fit in place, and also that it'll give a little bit of support here for the trigger underneath. And what I'm going to do is, using this leftover wire, I'm going to splice in the wires here for the trigger, and then I'll splice in the other wire here for the bomb or the gun select button over here. And that should be good enough. I'll try and get some screws and put those through here, through the metal part, and try and strengthen this up a lot more. But so far it's coming along pretty well. So the next step here will be to do the wiring for this, and then I'll test it out, make sure everything's working okay with the continuity, and then I'll put this thing together, hopefully, and at least the gun will be solid and back together again. So it'll look a lot better than the original piece that I had on there with the angle iron. So the next step here is to wire up these wires here. I'm going to go and back through here and check this out, make sure everything's okay, and then we should be all set. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to take everything apart again to realign it and reinforce it quite a bit so I can make this thing as solid as possible. I'm going around here with all the nuts and the bolts and trying to tighten them down, make sure that they're going to stay in place, as well as I'm going to try and add some kind of Loctite compound to it to make sure that they stay in place and they don't come loose, because once I get this thing put back together and get it all set up, I don't want it to come loose at all at any point in time, and then you know, you'll have a loose gun and it won't stay aligned. So what I'm doing right now is just that, trying to tighten everything down, and then I'll put it back on here and we'll go to the next step. I'm going to remove these regular screws here. These are just kind of like wood screws. I'm going to drill the holes through, and I'm going to put some nuts and bolts on here to make this a lot more secure, as well as the bottom holes too. Those ones are just kind of threaded in as of right now, but I'm going to take those all out and put in some regular nuts and bolts, and hopefully this will be a lot stronger by the end. But I'm going to get on that, get everything tightened down, and then once I do that, then I'll put up another part. But I'll get on that and see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got everything kind of mounted back down again. Up in the front, you can see I've gotten some regular screw holes down there and some regular nuts and bolts on the ends. What I put up here too are a couple of shims, and these are to stop the gun from going too far left or too far right. So those will provide a lot of support with that. What I'm in the process of here now is I'm trying to figure out some springs so I can get the gun to fully extend backwards and fully extend forward, and then spring back into a middle position here, neutral. So it's a little bit tricky. I'm trying to figure out what the best place to mount these are. Probably I'll mount one here, and then I'll mount one on the other side, and I'll try and see if I can get the right tension on it to where it's pulling on the front and it's also pulling on the back, but it's keeping it completely centered. So hopefully we'll get that done. I'm going to try and maybe drill a couple of holes here and see how this works, but I got a spring here, and then I got a spring for the other side, and we'll see if we can get this thing to center and then have some resistance on it. So when you push forward and you let go, it returns to neutral, and then when you pull back and you let go, it returns to neutral. So we'll try that next. That's where we're at so far, so I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so what you can see here is I've taken and added some springs to the side, and to try and kind of reinforce it and keep it somewhat centered. Unfortunately, with the tension on the springs, I didn't realize that I would actually need even stronger springs than the ones that I have here, because these were actually pretty strong, but I didn't take into consideration the amount of force and stuff, the leverage on this, because this actually goes forward quite easily, but doesn't come back as easy. And this goes back quite easily, but doesn't swing back forward as much as it should. And therefore, it doesn't spring back to center. And that's not such a huge problem, because it actually does help out quite a bit. This actually brings the gun into a very smooth kind of action, whereas before you had to kind of forcefully pull this thing back and then throw it forward again and try and find neutral. This isn't too bad to try and find the middle position here, so I've got that. I've also got a couple of springs on the front here on my 2 posts, and these are to spring it back, which it actually works out much better than the forward and back. But once again, you know, it's just a looks like it's just going to be something that helps rather than fully bringing everything back to center. Nonetheless, it's working out pretty well. I've got everything for the most part mounted in place, and yeah, the next thing to do will just be to test this thing out now that I have everything wired back up again. And I had to do some, you know, cutting and splicing in order to get everything inside here with the trigger, and then on the side here, this one is for the bombs or the gun. So we'll have to see how that works out. On the bottom here, it's still all the same. Nothing big change there. What I might do, actually, I do have a couple of feet, like legs for this. So what I'll probably do is on the bottom here, I'll put a couple of feet on the bottom. Well, I'll put 4 feet on the bottom here, and that should keep it more steady and in one spot. So I think I'll jump on that next, try and find the feet that I have for this and screw those in, and be all set. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, we've got our 4 feet on the bottom, or 4 legs, and those are going to keep this thing in place. So if it's ever sitting on a flat surface like a table or something, it's not going to scratch it, and it's going to grip pretty well. It's something really small, but it should work out, yeah, quite well. So the next thing that we're going to do is just get everything wired up and test this thing out and make sure it's still centered, everything is still working okay. There was a couple of things that I had to do, so you know, especially with the wiring on the inside here, I haven't had a chance to test to see if the old trigger works not, or you know, if the bottom wiring here is still intact. But what we're going to do is we'll plug it in, and next part we'll give it a test. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so I've got this thing plugged in here. I just went through a preliminary kind of adjustment here to try and get this thing in place. And we'll see how this thing goes. The sound's going to be probably extremely low, but let's see if the gun button works. That's the one that I wired up here. Looks like it works. I need to try and turn this thing up though. Yep, well, the gun button works. Let's see. Try and turn that up a little bit. Cool, my gun button works. Let's see if my fire button works here. I'll have to check it out. We'll see once it throws us into it. For those of you who've already seen this, I apologize. Let's see, does it work? Let's see. It's backwards. It's forward. Yeah! The gun works! Woo! Nice! Although, reverse, is that working? Yeah, I guess that is working. Just locked against a wall here. That seems to be going pretty well. I can't do everything here with, let's see. Woohoo! But yeah, much better compared to before. I mean, at least this thing has some grip on it. Now, before it used to have no grip, so it used to be quite difficult. Still hard to do one-handed, but let's see. Looks a lot better and seems to be playing much better. So let's see if we can. Keep thinking this is my aim, but it's not. It's to go forward. So let's see. All right. Trying to play this on my lap. Woo! But I always thought that the original gun that they used for this one was a bit odd. I mean, considering you using your handgun most of the time. So, I mean, at least this looks more like the handgun that you're using here. Let's see. Ooh, let's go in there. But yeah, it seems to be working out all right, guys. Let's see. Can I get this? Yeah. Ah, get off me. I'm not gonna try and grab that over there, just because Nemesis will come out and try and destroy me. There he is right there, I think. Well, yeah. Nope. Oh, it's the, it's another thing.
Contamination detected. Level S. Instruction A.
But as you can see for yourself, guys, it is working, and it's a lot better, a lot easier to play. This is, it's too weak. I turned the dim down on this thing, but much smoother holding like a gun type shape here compared to my original setup. But that was kind of like an alpha setup. This is like more of a beta, almost close to the final product here. So, where you at? Whee! But yeah, nonetheless, guys, it is working, and I'm very pleased with how far it's come. You know, considering I built this thing from scratch, it really didn't have, you know, anything to it. It was just a bunch of parts and from different stuff, and now it's at least a functioning gun that can be used for Biohazard. I'm gonna have to get rid of all the Sega logos and stuff like that, but nonetheless, just figured I'd share this update video with you. And yeah, I mean, this thing was sitting around. I was getting ready to try and clean stuff up. As you guys can see here, everything's a mess. I'm in the process of trying to clean out my closet. And yes, I know about the bowed kind of shelves. There's no no need to talk about that. But yeah, I'm in the process of here trying to get everything squared away. And while I was doing that, I got on the this kind of project here and started thinking, okay, I can't just put that back in the closet the way it is, so I've got to do something. So that's what has kind of led me to doing this. It's taken me a couple of days actually to get everything wired up and to get everything kind of squared away. You can see what I did here too is I left the little glass window, or the plastic window on the inside, just to give it a little bit of an effect, even though it's not a light gun at all. It still works. And eventually, I think down the road here, what we'll do is we'll try and get something around this area so we cover this up and you guys just see the gun, and the whole base and everything will be all kind of covered up as well and painted up a little bit, and it should look nicer than this. But yeah, that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon, so thanks for watching. Whee! Biohazard. Haha, awesome.